Hey, welcome everyone to the ArchiCAD User Monthly Webinar, special bonus edition for both May and June combined, 2024. My name is Eric Bobrow and I'll be your host today, but I have actually 4 veteran ArchiCAD users who will be presenting their work. And I'm very excited about it because this is a lot of great stuff that they're going to be sharing. So please put on your webcams and let me introduce you. Meanwhile, those of you who are watching, and a lot of people are filing into the virtual room, so to speak, over 50 at this point. Please just type into the questions area where you're calling in from. And if you wanted to make any personal message of a question, something that you're fascinated with in terms of the topic at hand, or anything else. But just say hello and where you're calling in from at minimum. All right, so I see Bob Moore from Monroe, North Carolina, Tom from Vancouver, Ian from Scotland. Excellent. All right, so keep on filling it in. Carl from Sydney, so we're already at 3 continents. Kent from San Diego. All right, so I'll let you fill that in. And meanwhile, I'm going to go and just say hello to our guests. So we've got on the stage already, Ron Culver. Nice to have you here, Ron.
Good to be here.
Yeah, so I tell everybody where you're located right now.
Venice, California.
Okay, Venice is in the Los Angeles area.
It is Los Angeles technically.
Yeah, so you're going to be our main presenter today, talking about BIM project management with a sort of prepared presentation that you actually did for USC for a conference called BIMBOP, which I participated in a long time ago when I was based in LA. So Vladimir Tataranu.
Hello.
Where we tell everybody where you're located and what you're going to be showing us today.
I'm from Romania, and I will show you a small project with a house that I use some wood framing for the roof. And also I will show you how I use BMX to share the model with the construction and the other engineers.
Okay, excellent. So we'll be seeing some framing and BIMX and talking a little bit about how you're sharing that with other professionals. So we also have Roger Schaefer here. I know you don't have a webcam, but Roger, can you say hello?
Hello, thanks for having me.
And yeah, so get a little bit closer to the mic. It's a little hard to hear.
I'm here in Lakeport, California, north of Sacramento. And today I'll be talking about wall framing. That's something that Graphisoft needs to put a little more effort into. But
okay. So your audio is going in and out. So Roger, you're going to have to really lean towards that mic and not bump it.
So I've done a few workarounds to try to get some studs and headers, and I'll be showing what I did.
Okay. All right. So we're going to be seeing some of the mechanics of actually framing an ArchiCAD model using the tools that we have available. And I'm just going to ask you again, when you are talking, you're just going to have to get close to the mic because it was going in and out. And then I see Dwayne has joined us. Dwayne Valencia, are you there, Dwayne? You may.
How about unmuting myself?
Yeah, you just unmuted. Yeah, now we can hear you. Do you have a webcam today, Dwayne?
I do.
Okay, well, you can put it on now if you are able to.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, so nice to see you. So tell everybody where you're located and what you're going to be showing us.
So I'm over here in La Quinta, California, which is in the Palm Springs area. And I'll be showing some. So Roger mentioned that ArchiCAD needs to get on the ball about this framing stuff. Well, maybe 20 years ago, I started building my own parts. And so I'll be showing some of those today that make it a whole ton easier to do that. And by the way, shout out to Lou Bishop I see on the line.
Okay, yeah, excellent. Yeah, Lou, let's say regularly am in touch with through my ArchiCAD coaching program. And just a little tiny advertisement, if you want help with your ArchiCAD questions, you can contact me on a regular basis through the ArchiCAD coaching program. You can go to archicadtraining.com/coaching. and you can sign up for it on a monthly or yearly basis. In addition, if you want training on ArchiCAD, just go to archicadtraining.com and you'll see that I have a comprehensive course called ArchiCAD Best Practices 2020, which is when I started making it, a few years ago, not too many years. Anyway, enough of an advertisement. So today, pleased to introduce Ron to share your screen. I'm going to make you presenter here. And then we'll just get a little bit more of an introduction in terms of your work. So Ron, go ahead and get your screen sharing going. So Ron, I've known you for quite a few years because based in LA, you and your firm got ArchiCAD through my office as a reseller, and I believe you learned ArchiCAD through our office.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah. So we started it all with you, and did all your training. And I can't seem to share my screen for some reason.
So I've made you a presenter, and you should be able to say share screen.
I'm not getting anywhere right now.
Okay, earlier we had done this and it had worked.
Yep.
So let me put myself back on as the presenter and show my screen, and then I'll make you presenter again and look for a notification that says you've been given the opportunity to share your screen. So I'm going to do
Okay.
that. So I'll say make presenter. So now look for something pops up on your screen.
There it is. Sorry, it was buried.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, can you see that?
We can see the colorful, abstract. Now I see Slim BIM, yes.
Okay, you see the main screen?
Well, I see Slim BIM best practices. It's your presenter screen.
Yep. Oh, you mean then I must have selected the wrong screen.
Yeah, okay, so
Stop showing my screen. Oh, gosh.
yeah, you can, yeah.
I'm getting, okay, let's try this. That's not the right screen. There we go. Okay, now I've got it marked. Great.
Okay, so Ron, just tell us a little bit about your firm, your background. I know you started working with ArchiCAD back in 2005 or something?
Sure, and in 2005, we were doing a lot of single family, doing a lot of renovations too, which is always more challenging in some ways, new homes and restaurants and commercial tenant improvements. Then about 10 years ago, I went to work for Michael Falonis Architects. I'd known him for many years, and I was his managing director, and we were doing large-scale mixed-use projects. So they were, 90, 100, 150 unit buildings in Santa Monica. And so I'm going to be sharing a lot of that, and also tenant improvement like the Tesla showroom, and still some small single-family things. So scales from small to extra large, and also with FormFound design. So Culver Architects, and with FormFound design, doing small experimental projects, installations, and now we're doing humanitarian housing in Armenia. Using computational framing, and if I have time, I'd like to show you that one of those projects. We're doing sort of a small development of a little variety of homes using FrameCAD. And I also teach licensure, and going to be teaching a BIM integration course at Orange Coast College starting Monday. And if anybody wants to become a part of that, it's Monday and Wednesday from 8 to noon for 8 weeks, with the exception of June 19th. And
Is that only in person or is that online?
it's online, so you can do it from anywhere. 8 to noon on Mondays and Wednesdays. It'll do ArchiCAD from 0 to 100. Plus, it will be using it as a design tool, and so it's a design class. It's part of the architecture program at Orange Coast College. And if people are interested, we can share the Zoom link. You can show up on Monday, 8 to 12. And if you say, yes, I want to do this, then you can register. Have to do it quickly because the last registration is the 16th of June, and it takes a few days to get going. But I can put that.
So you'll give me that Zoom link, and I'll at least, you want me to?
Do you want it now or do you want it at the end?
Actually, you could give it to me now. We can put it in the what do you call it, the chat, and then people can copy it down. So it'd be Monday and Wednesday from 8 to noon for 8 sessions. Did you say 4 weeks?
Yeah, it's hang on a second here. Sorry, I've got the wrong screen open. It's 8 weeks, 8 to 12, Mondays and Wednesdays. And,
so 16 sessions. 16 sessions.
Yeah, actually, I shared the link with you at 8:43 this morning.
Okay, all right.
Can
Well,
you do
I'll
that?
put that in the chat. And what's the cost of it?
Well, it's less than $300. I don't know exactly. You have to apply to the college. You fill out these forms, and then once your application has been accepted, and everybody's accepted, then you can register for the class. So it's a bit complicated, but it should be worth it. It should be great. And it gets 2 credits if somebody wants college credit.
All right. Okay, so 8 weeks, so it would be 16 sessions,
Yep.
4 hours, so a lot of hours. What will the focus will be on learning ArchiCAD from basic to, pretty deep, as opposed to, you don't expect people to already know ArchiCAD?
They don't have to.
Okay.
And if they already know some ArchiCAD, that's just a bonus. We'll be diving deep into it.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, I'll post that in the chat for people, and I'll also send it out via email. And yeah, okay. So, what's your passion, Ron? Here, it seems like your passion in terms of teaching and licensure and stuff is helping other architects use ArchiCAD and use tools effectively, right?
Absolutely. But my passion is also design and problem solving. So, working with clients to sort of find the essence of every project. And ArchiCAD's a great tool for this. I mean, there's just no question. You can do the entire project in ArchiCAD. Sometimes I think it's a good idea to bring Rhino in for complex geometry, and to do exploration of complex geometry. But for orthogonal projects, ArchiCAD is so good. Great presentation tool as well. We use it at Michael Filonis Architects to do architectural review board presentations, and those would be the sort of things people would normally do in Illustrator or InDesign, and it's all done in ArchiCAD, the whole thing.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's get going with the visuals because it's just sitting on this. You talk about BIM, just for context, so not everybody knows what BIM stands for and how it relates to ArchiCAD's virtual building model.
Right, building information modeling, and it's a garbage in, garbage out issue. So it's really important to have great information going in so that you can extract good information coming out.
Okay, so a lot of information can be put into an ArchiCAD model, and if you have it well planned, and this is where you're talking about the best practices, which is one of my passions.
Right.
So take it away.
Yeah, so we're going to be just touching on a lot of things right now. First thing is a good template, and that's something Eric had drilled into me from the beginning. I created my own templates, worked with other people's templates, looked at Eric's template at some point, but it's really critical to compile or get a good template and use it. So if you're working in a larger firm, have the manager set up the file so that not everybody so everybody's not working on their own templates, their own files. That you have to have a standard. And in Revit, it's really hard to change your file once you've started, but in ArchiCAD, you actually do have a lot of options, but you shouldn't have to. If you set it up at the beginning, you should be good to go. So I find it's really important to think about what you're going to be producing before you start. Ideally, when you do a pencil drawing, you start by considering what you're going to put on the page. I know a lot of us haven't done that in a long time, but you had to figure out where does the floor plan sit, where do the section drawings fit, and you set up the pages and then you draw within those spaces. So it's the same thing for ArchiCAD. You have to set things up so that they land in the right place. And because ArchiCAD template built in sets itself up with cloning, that should be fairly simple to do. So once you start drawing, your drawings go directly to the either schematic design or construction documents pages in the template for the layout books. And I've been experimenting just using ArchiCAD 27 out of the box because I haven't used the ArchiCAD templates in a long time. They're pretty robust. So the critical thing about this is that once you get your template set up, it means that you can print or send a PDF file or publish the drawings anytime when you need it. So working in an office, you've got a deadline coming up, clients are going to be walking in the door in half an hour. You don't want to be messing around with your layout. You want to have that all ready to go. All you have to do is hit the button and go. So this is a really dumb template right here. It's very basic. I mean, well, the model is dumb. It's just for, we don't design like this. It's just for illustrative purposes. But this is the cover sheet, and everything has a place to land on the cover sheet. So you've got perspective drawings, interior perspective, you got all the project data. So it's laid out so that you can move on it, just like all of your, all of your other drawings and drainage plans and addition demolition plans. Everything has a place to go. So once you start drawing, they'll show up in the right places. And you can expand and the windows here for each drawing and make it fit your model. But you should do that early on once you've established how big the model is. And I've got to look to see my notes on this. Yeah, clear the windows. There we go. Great. So some of these things are movies, so forgive me if I'm a little bit outside of myself and not knowing exactly what's going to show up because it's been several years since I saw this presentation. So I think it's really important to model everything that you can. So you see here, we've got electrical outlets modeled. The kitchen is fully modeled with all of the counter overhangs built into the cabinetry. Those are all built-in counters, built-in sink. All of the cabinetry modules within ArchiCAD can do this. Custom cabinetry, there's a custom pull-out or garage on the left side of the screen on the counter. There's custom details for the range hood. You see the lights sitting in there above the range. As much as possible, you model everything. And the reason for this is that once you start changing things, it'll show up in your interior elevation drawings. So everything's here. So if the model of the kitchen changes, then this interior elevation will change too. So I think it's really critical. So that here I'm just showing you, if I delete that drawing in the elevation drawing, it's gonna be deleted in the 3D model as well. and vice versa. I think this movie is going to get me to that 3D model in just a second. Yeah, so I deleted here in this model, and you'll see it's being deleted in the other drawing as well. So, and I'm going to show you an example of how things don't work well. This is the 3D drawing. And this is now the elevation drawing. So in all the drawings that it's related to, it's going to show up and respond. And let me see if this movie is going to stop. Yep, looks like it stopped. Also, we talk about different levels of development in LOD 100. Honestly, I don't think about the numbers so much as I think about how do I produce a drawing really quickly at schematic design or pre-schematic design, and how do I produce drawings really quickly at design development, and likewise in construction documentation when you're really becoming granular here. So it's really important to not have to go back, and also fabrication drawings. And I've done steel drawings too for structural steel and things like that, right in ArchiCAD, fully modeled. And so here's a large scale project, a 90-unit mixed-use building at the corner of Colorado and Lincoln in Santa Monica. This is with Michael Filonis Architects. And it's complex in a lot of ways, but something bad happened before I became the managing director and got on the project. This unit right in the middle with that yellow door, all of these units, for one thing, are modules, which means that each unit is its own little project, and we design one and we replicate it on multiple levels. So this project probably has 15 units in it, although it's a 90-unit mixed-use building. And each of those units has a module, which is the kitchen, and another module, which is the bathroom or bathrooms, depending upon the unit. And those modules might get replicated more times. So there may be 5 kitchen modules and 15 unit modules and 5 bathroom modules, so that you only have to design it once, and it fits within a certain space, and it goes from the small granular level of like the bathroom or the kitchen module, which is then referenced into the unit module, which is then referenced into the main module. So you're not chasing your tail, making changes on 90 units. You're doing it on 5 or 15 units. And all of those automatically get updated. Actually, this project had 16 modules. Now that I read my own notes, so I think that's it's really makes it much more efficient. This is a movie too, and so what am I doing here? Is it going to play? I don't know. Here we go. Yeah. And all of the things on the roof, I don't know if you take a good look, all of the solar panels, all of the heat pumps, the hot water boilers, they're all modeled so that we can see it in section, we can see it in plan, we can see when things change. Oh, I've already been to this one. So this is what you should have modeled in here. So here's the interior elevations of the kitchen. There's the kitchen plan. There's the kitchen interior elevation, one of them. But if we open that source view, what do we find? It's a 2D drawing done in a worksheet. So this is a really bad idea, because always throughout the course of the projects, things change. And in this case, we went through 2 CASP consultants. And for those who don't know, that's a certified accessibility specialist. California has very stringent accessibility standards. And so we hire CASP consultants to ensure that the project complies. So we may have been, the counter might have been 36 inches, which it shows right here, and it's supposed to be 34 inches tall in order to meet accessibility standards. So that means we have to go back and change all of these 2D drawings, which is insane, when we could go back to the original module that we had and just change the counter height, change the cabinet size. Done. It should update automatically in these drawings. Another thing you can do, you see we've got U03, U22, and we've got keynotes assigned to those numbers. You can actually, in the ID of each object, you can assign a name to it. And so when you click on it with an automatic tag, it will automatically come up with the label, like a U03, U15, which is extremely time saving when you're going around labeling a project. And if you're using these objects over and over again, it's very easy to do. And particularly if you copy and paste from one project to another, then it'll save that information. I actually prefer to use CSI numbers because they're universally applicable. The Construction Standards, Construction Specifications Institute numbers. And then you can reference those in the sidebar. So yeah, you don't want to, don't do this. Let's see. Oh yeah, you see now this is all blown apart. So that means that everything is fills and polylines and single lines, and it's just it's a nightmare when you go to change it. So not sure where this is, where this model, this view is going to take me. Now, if I go inside, I think it's going to take me inside this unit. You'll see that it really, yeah, come on, we're going to turn it around. Turn it around. It has a few things in there, but I don't think it's. That's what got modeled in the kitchen, you know. So you can see it in plan, but it doesn't reflect the entire project. And it was easy to do. You know, you build it, you do it once in a kitchen module, and it gets replicated. So anyway, that's a really critical thing to do. 144 drawings had to be updated instead of 15. Okay, let's see. Can I get out of this? Yeah. Let's just move on. All right, we did model the big structural elements in this project, and so those, you know, those. Well, here's another view of that project from the neighboring side. This is all built, by the way, and where this picture is taken from is another building. It's already built, yeah, these are more of the things that should have been modeled. Now here's something that we're looking at, the plumbing drawings, and the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical engineers were one outfit, and the developer didn't want to have to pay to have them model their work in BIM. It was an additional charge. And this is before I got involved, and Michael Falonis wasn't pushing them hard enough for that, because it wasn't really his experience prior to this time. But because they didn't model everything in BIM, we couldn't import their model of their work and just determine where those pipes actually ran and determine the clashes well prior to construction. We would have been able to work out so many different things. As you see here, where RFI 342 is highlighted, there was a conflict. We had a piece of plumbing running right through the fire exits there, which took a lot of time to rework, and it got reworked during construction, because you can see this RFI is during the construction phase, and the contractor sent it to us. So it's really important on projects like this to get MEP, M and P for sure modeled in BIM, so you can detect these clashes. Should be no problem for them to do. Minor upcharge, and most people want to do it anyway. This is just showing some of the other issues, because now you can see you should be able to see where the plumbing is in your model, and that, we weren't able to work things out, but now you can see, some of the loft units, these are loft units with a mezzanine at the ground level under the podium, look pretty clean, but others were just a mess. And we couldn't tell until the construction started. So anyway, and we just talked about that. Now here's another project. It's a 3-unit condominium, also in Santa Monica, also by Michael Falonis Architects. And another project that I came in late to the game. They were starting construction. Or it was just finished plan check. It was all approved and bidding, negotiating, and I looked at it, and there was so many things. This in plan, this project is actually has got a bunch of angles in the middle of it, and we actually modeled this, I believe. Yeah, that this is what we modeled. But if you look at it, what we didn't understand was that there's a piece of steel there on the second floor level. Then there's a piece of wood sitting on it above that, and then there's a piece of steel sitting above that. Structural engineer hadn't worked it all the way out so that the steel could actually be installed all in one phase. Steel workers had to wait for the contractors to do some work down at the ground level. They erected to the second floor. Then they had to wait for the contractors to put in some wood so they could put their steel on top of it. This is a nightmare, right? So here's where it is. This is like a year into the project, and it was this far along, which is a year into construction. This is just insane. It was way too late. And so I think it took 3 years to build this project, which is far too long. And then there were other issues too that hadn't been worked out. If you see behind the stairs there, this is supposed to be an open vestibule, and to the left of the stairs you'll see some angled steel holding plumbing and wires between the stair and the wood framing to the left. That was never in the drawing. This one, that was supposed to be completely open. There's a gap between the stair and the wall, and so because there wasn't BIM integration with this project, all of that stuff had to be run through what was supposed to be an open space. Here's another project, Tesla showroom in Santa Monica at the Santa Monica 3rd Street Mall, across from the Nike store. And this was an extremely complex project that we did do good integration. This was with Novum Structures, did the storefront facade with all of the structure, the bow truss columns, all of the glass, all of the standoffs, as well as the standoffs for the aluminum facade that's done by Arctura. And so everybody shared files. Because the existing building had a lot of complex geometry in the steel framing, we actually had to get a point cloud scan done of the buildings so that everybody knew exactly where the existing framing was so that they could meet it, because there was just no way we could measure all of that out. And so once we did that, it was a walk in the park to get everything to align to meet the existing steel framing. And you can see this is actually part of it's an addition. On the bottom left, it's bowed out there. That was an addition so that they had more room for their sedans to fit inside. And so there was complex geometry in the roof framing, and it was modeled in an as-needed segments for the section drawings. But unfortunately, it wasn't done properly. The person who was handling this drawing didn't really think it through. Although we detailed everything well, this is what the construction documents look like, but it should have looked like this. And it didn't because the person modeling it didn't model the roof past that darkened insulated roof segment there. So you have to really watch this and make sure you have a good model once again. Because if we had a good model, this would have been really clear. It was pretty good. So here is the model that we have with all integrating Novum structures and Arcturus models. There's that structure with all of the standoffs, and here we are with, we've got an S and an X. There's a 3 in there somewhere. All of this came together seamlessly once we'd worked out the models. Oh. And you see, we put everything into these books. This is the Architecture Review Board book, and so all of it is done in ArchiCAD, the whole thing. And it's live, so that you change the model while you're working. Everything appears in the book just the way it's supposed to, as well as the construction documents.
Hey, Ron, there's a question about where did you get the Tesla model cars?
I think we just downloaded them from the internet. They're everywhere, and don't forget that you can import, if you can't find an ArchiCAD model, you can import from SketchUp. So
Okay.
I often import SketchUp models. Yeah, I never find any lack of options out there. Sometimes you have to work around a little bit. But honestly, the idea of having great furniture models is far less important to me than having a highly functional BIM software.
Mm-hmm. There's a question from earlier. You can just work into the rest of somewhere in the rest of the presentation about calculating schedules when you have modules, and how do you calculate so that you don't overlap walls and being counted twice. And this is from Fran Parr, asking, modules would make the general layout a bit like a puzzle. When two modules are one beside the other, maybe walls overlap. So I guess you have to make some decisions about shared walls versus independent walls.
Absolutely. But if you think about multifamily projects, the unit to unit walls, they have their own walls. There's always a double demising wall, and then we leave a 1-inch gap, so the walls that meet end to end are sticking out a 1/2 inch from the demising wall on each side. So you put your reference line so that you know the grid is a 1/2 inch away from each demising wall. It's right in the middle. It's, you just work out your protocol for how you do that. But and then you just, if they find that there's something overlapping for some strange reason, you just pull that wall back, and it all works out in the end. It takes a little bit of extra thought, but it's far easier to do it in a module. And sometimes you'll have an exterior skin piece or that wraps outside of a module that, depending upon the aesthetics, you can always do that too. But do you have time? I want to show you this other project right from the model.
Yeah, you went through that, very quickly. Well, definitely, please post your questions. So all of you, we've got
Sure.
over 85 people on the call right now. So do feel free to ask questions, and I'll relay them to Ron. Just let's take a look at some of your other work.
Yeah, so I see these questions about the modules now in the questions, and yeah, it's just once you start using them, you start to understand how it works. So first, you have to determine what your footprint of each unit is going to be, and maybe you make a fill pattern for each or a zone for each unit in the plan, and then you transfer that to the unit module, and then you know exactly how much space you've got. So it just takes a little bit of work. Test model cars, and did we use CineRender for your renderings? Gosh, I don't remember what the renderings were. They might have been. I think it was just Maxon. Yeah. I think it was just Maxon rendering. Now some of the renderings, like the honestly, the renderings that would go into the Architecture Review Board books, they would be done outsourced, because Michael Falonis would get like one good rendering for $500 for this huge project in China. So it was just way better to have them do that. It would be back and forth, over the course of a week. You'd send them notes, mark it up, send it back. They'd come back, but they work at night when we're working during the day, so that worked out pretty well. But my forte is not realistic rendering. You can get that. There's lots of people that do that for cheap.
All right, well, let's
Much better to have a good model.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of your other projects that you have prepared.
Yeah, let me take a look, see if I've got the right project open now. Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to share that screen. Can you see that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is a little project in Armenia. And it's a single family home. There's going to be a bunch of them on these lots. Some of them are shaped like this. Some have got a different roof aspect, but they all have a sort of similar kind of thing. It was using the inspiration from jet manifold intakes, looking to sort of create a new vernacular in Armenia. And so there was some challenges that came up with this project, and one of them is quite simply the way these walls terminate on angles. And if I look at the floor plan going down to the ground floor, and I'll turn off these trusses, you'll see that walls, and there's two walls that meet here in order to create this thickness. There's a wall side by side. So it's not like we can just chop that wall at the end, and they've got different finishes. You could put a solid element operation happening here to create that angle. But what I found after having done that, what I found worked even better and made a nice clean model, clean ends everywhere, was, and let's see if I can select it properly, to put a little angled wall right here. Let's see, this is that wall on an angle. And then the side panels, these are two different walls, so two different levels, both intersect with that single angled wall. And then what I also noticed was sometimes it didn't work out all that cleanly, and I'll show you. And then there's these end walls. They're really hard to select because ArchiCAD likes to show you stuff that's inside the building now, and maybe one of you guys can tell me how to turn that off. But each of these has a solid element operation that is being subtracted from the roof. So I could take this wall and, come on now, find me that wall. There we go. I could take this wall and extend the roof, the top of it up back here. Well, it's not from the roof actually, but you see what? Look what happens when I that didn't do that. Let's try it again. Try to see if I can get this one to get screwed up. No. Let me try a different wall. But you see, if I do it right or wrong, maybe I'll get those lines showing up in the model, which is not what I want. Let's see if I can do it. Get it to get bad on this one. No, didn't do it. Interesting. Oh well, sometimes those lines show up. But the basic concept here is that these side walls will intersect with the end wall and then also the interior wall. So it just does a complete U-turn around this end and it makes a nice clean wall.
Do you
Same
actually
thing.
have separate walls for exterior and interior? Or just because you have some cladding as a detail?
Say again? I want to make sure I got
Separate
that.
walls for exterior and interior, or is it just in that context where you have this sort of applied wall?
Always separate walls, interior versus exterior. This is my exterior wall type, and this is the interior wall type. If that's what you're asking?
No, but on the outside skin,
Yep.
you
No, it's all one wall. It's all
Okay.
a composite. So all of the exterior walls look like this, which is it's metal 3 5/8 insulation and siding. So it's got rigid insulation, 177 millimeters. This is all metric because it's in Armenia. It's all a composite. All these walls are composites, and then what I did, because I really like to model everything, and I was having trouble getting the siding, which is angled, I was having trouble getting it to look right on the model, on the elevations, because I'd have the exterior edge of the roof would have this angled siding. You can tilt your the hatches as in the model itself. You know, if I opened up, I don't have it in this model anymore, but
you're doing this with a beam that is inclined, which and it's a custom profile. It has a bunch of little pieces.
right. So let me do this. I'm going to turn off these custom profiles. I'll show you what I did. So I can open up this, and I can make this. This was a metal standing seam 15 degrees, and maybe it'll go in the right direction, maybe it won't. Yeah, so this is the way I originally did it, where you can see the siding here, the lines of the siding going up on 15 degrees. But then you have to get everything to align, and the edge of the roof didn't line up with the edge of the wall, and so you wind up doing a bunch of fills. So what I ultimately did was use complex profiles to create the siding, and it's just a beam. This is the beam. You can see that, and it's using the profile called siding. But I also created siding 1, siding 2. Let me see if I change it to siding 2, see what happens. Siding 2 goes a little bit taller. You can see that. I just added more pieces to it, and they're just a simple rectangle, as you can see that there. At the spacing that I called out, I think it was 300 millimeters. And then there are, if I flip the layers over here, I did have to use solid element operations to carve out the pieces of the siding. So this is a block that there, and there's one down at the bottom. But I didn't do that to the walls because it cleaned up much more easily to do the wraparound wall returns. But then there's just, these little things, little piece of siding in there, and the roof is all a beam as well. And it just seemed to be a much cleaner way, because now when I go to the elevation drawings for this project, everything shows up properly. And you can see the edge of the siding popping out past the wall over here. And you can see it on the inside here. It's clean, right? So sometimes you need to model these things to get the results that you want. Then there's another little thing that we did, which is a rendered section drawing. Now, excuse my footings. I didn't get into the angles on this particular one. Rendered section drawing with trusses rendered and steel studs and interior view. And if I open up this drawing, I believe it's actually two different drawings. Let's see. Yep. So there's two different drawings here. One's overlaid. The section drawing is overlaid on top of a sectional rendering. And that was done in Maxon, straight from the model. So if I change something, it will change as well. Does that make sense? And so then you can get this sort of nice
comments of nice rendering, nice section drawing.
Yeah.
And Dave Olaf's asked about the raised profile for the wall and roof finishes, which we saw.
Yeah. So those are all beams, the raised profiles, and I highly recommend people get into complex profiles and go in my profile manager. If I can find that screen over there, it's on the other side. I go into those section drawings and I'll show you the siding drawings. And if I go to, why can't I edit that? Siding 3, siding 4, why can't I edit it? I must have done something there. Let's try it now.
You need to go into a plan view.
Oh, well, there you go. I knew that. See, now I can edit it. And it's just those rectangles as high as many as I needed. I always locked one corner to the to this 0 point, and that's it. Very simple. That's all those things. So
about 5 more minutes, Ron. Do you have another project? I believe you.
So I've got another one too, which was a little bit more complex in that it has this wraparound stair. And you'll see that I've actually made some errors in this, and it's not finished. You see this roof isn't supposed to be square over here. And it's just a white model that I'm working with a little reveal for the second story. But this stair wraparound was made with a bunch of different things. This is just a standard wall that is differenced out by a beam that I made out of complex element profile. It's called south bottom stair, and then there's another beam that's at the top. And that beam at the top, actually, I used as a morph. I cut it into a morph, and I'm now gonna move it around. It's gonna actually, this top piece over the door is gonna project, but it actually has to be modeled a little differently. And what I'm gonna do, because it didn't make a clean resolution here. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm going to change that morph to be just inside the walls and not try to be the roof and the solid element to trim the walls. And I'm going to have another beam that goes to the top of this to trim the walls. So the walls will go all the way up to the top, and so you're not going to see these seams here. So once you sort of made these profiles, which is easy to do in elevation view or plan and in a worksheet, it's pretty simple just to have them trim these pieces here. So that's this is a little ADU sitting behind an existing single family dwelling, but okay, so that's all I've got.
You work in the white model view a lot for conceptual?
Actually, no, it's just, well, yes, to present. It's a better way to present, because what we really don't want to do is show the client materials early on. We want to show them form.
Right.
We don't want them to get too married to the idea of what something actually looks like materially. We want them to see shape, and then we'll talk about form. But we've left ourselves some options by kicking the second story out a couple of inches. We're able to transition from one material to another, so we can get this second story volume to look like it's floating over the ground floor. And we talk about that to the client, but we don't model it right now.
So I want to go back at least briefly to your big project with the Tesla that was done with all modeled, and you mentioned different models being integrated together. Were they done through IFC? Were they done through the BIM server? Did you import stuff and have it a copy of the other consultants' models inside yours? What did you do?
IFC was the method of choice. They weren't working in ArchiCAD, they were working in Revit or sometimes Tekla. And we brought in Rhino models. We used IFC as the standard import export.
Okay, so you had essentially a copy of their geometry in your model to coordinate with. You could make notes of issues. Did you use BIMX at all?
We didn't on that project, but we use BIMX all the time. I find once there's a reasonable model to share with a client, it's a great way for clients, particularly people single family, to be able to visualize something. People that haven't looked at architecture before, looked at models, BIM models before. It's a great method. I don't have a BIM model handy, but the Vanadzor project, if you type in Vanadzor, you'll probably find that model in BIMX, in the BIMX library, Vanadzor. That's Vanadzor, Armenia. So that model will come up.
So when the Tesla project was a few years ago?
Yes, it was finished in 2022,
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
So what would you do differently now, or could you do differently? Is there any changes in terms of either ArchiCAD itself or the communication with the other disciplines?
Well, the first thing I would have done was got a point cloud model of the existing building. We actually spent a lot of time trying to identify exactly the location of their structure, and it was a waste of time. Point cloud model showed us where everything was exactly, because we were constantly trying to figure out, well, is it there? Is it over here? How big is this place? So that's one thing, and I think a good, really, that's why we always start, if it's an existing building, we have to start with a survey, so we know at least what sure your boundaries of the building are. That's a really important thing, and then really dialing in the physical model, that roof, that piece of the roof. Whoever was modeling in our office wasn't really clear on how to model a roof that went around a curve and complex curves very easily. So it wasn't all modeled originally. And so then it was harder to change, because you were dealing with some things that were part model, part 2D. So model everything. That's for sure, that's the best way to do it. Try to get everything modeled as much as possible. But sometimes like the Vanadzor project, and like this project with that little ADU with the curved walls, sometimes I model something and I realize not the right way to do it. I have to, in order to make it clean and work more consistently, there's another approach. And sometimes it's a complex profile, it's a way of layering a complex profile, you know, turn it into a morph, you know, things like that. But always leave yourself options to go backwards by making copies of objects that you've made if you have to, if it's one-off. You know?
Yeah, great advice. Rick Skorick says, did you do your own point cloud, and what was used to generate the file?
No, we don't do that. That's a surveyor. That's people that specialize in point cloud surveys. And the file came out as a DWG, 3D DWG file or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we just integrated it into the model, so it was easy.
Right. So I know that ArchiCAD has built-in support for point cloud formats, and so you end up, for those of you who haven't worked with it, it looks sort of like a picture in terms of colors. You know, you can see actual color of things, but it's dots in space, so there's nothing to snap onto, but you can see if something is touching or going through something else if you zoom in on it, but there's no snaps. So that's one of the limitations. Now, an interesting thing I'll just mention, a number of users have been experimenting with a tool called Canvas, I think. Very briefly, it's like a do-it-yourself point cloud. It's an app that runs on iPads and possibly even iPhones using the LiDAR. So the most recent model iPad and I think iPhone will have, in addition to just a camera, it'll have some sort of range finding capability. And you walk around a space and it will build a point cloud, you know, with that software with you and for you. Now, the company that makes the software then sells, so the software is cheap. You can then say, I want to send it to you, give me a CAD model, and they'll send it out. It used to be just Revit or SketchUp. Now they actually have an ArchiCAD version. And so you can get an as-built ArchiCAD model for a very modest cost. You know,
yeah.
It's $1 per square foot, or, you know, something there. Now, it's not all on your layers, and it is sort of simplified massing type of things, but it is precise, certainly close enough to do your design on, you know, whether it's close within the quarter of an inch or, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's quite fascinating that, and what they do, they don't actually, it doesn't go from point cloud instantly to a CAD. There's an operator somewhere in India or wherever who's basically modeling the darn thing based on the point cloud and then handing you your ArchiCAD file. You know, that. So the point cloud is digital. The ArchiCAD or Revit model is interpreted by a trained human being. And from what I've seen, you know, people have sent me, hey, can you check this out? How does it look? You know, they look pretty reasonable. We're not talking about layers and getting a clean construction drawing out, but you can get a clean model that you can then work with. So
that's great. For the Tesla project, I would never have done anything like that.
Yeah, well, you need something much more precise, and so
to be exact. We were dealing with hanging $1 million worth of storefront off of this existing building. So it, you know, the liability of somebody going with their iPhone and trying to get a good model of it was really, really high.
But you never do that. But you could certainly do it for an initial, just like look-see conceptual thing, you know.
Oh yeah, we just did it for a project in Lakewood. You know, our partner Joseph just walked through with his iPhone and in 5 minutes modeled the existing 2-bedroom house. Now, is it accurate? We don't know, but once we combine it with a survey, well, that's good enough for us, you know.
Yeah. So
because it's an addition.
What's the name of the software for the point clouds? I believe it's called Canvas, just like, you know, an artist's canvas. If you do a search for it, maybe canvas.io, or you could just look for iPad point cloud, you know, or something like that, and I'm sure you would find that. Well, Ron, this has been great. Thank you so much for a very clear presentation. Obviously, you can't teach everything in an hour, but you covered a lot of ground. And for those of you who want to learn more from this very articulate gentleman here, I'll be posting a link and mailing it out as well, that you can, for a modest, you know, under $300, sit in on an online course starting this coming Monday?
They're starting this Monday, and so if you want to do it, you have to be there Monday.
Right.
Because it's a critical piece, and if you're going to commit to it, then we have to get your registration done within the week.
Right.
Which is not.
Now, is there any restriction in terms of people have to be in the US or whatever? Is it just if you have your money, you can?
So in California, a California resident is less than $300. Thank you for bringing that up. But people who are not residents of California, it's more. It's like double that or something. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Still pretty reasonable for what, 8 times 4, 32 times 2, 64 hours of instruction. So
Yes.
what are you going to be doing? You're going to be having them build things together.
Yes.
You're going to teach them principles and then have them do homework.
Exactly. It's part tutorial, part workshop. So it'd be like a studio in architecture school where I'll give a lecture for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then there'll be studio time, and I'll go back and check with each individual online.
Okay. And will recordings then be made available for people who have purchased it so that they can
Yes.
review?
Everything's recorded so you can review it.
Any chance that it would be available separately after the fact as a standalone thing?
Only if you sign up for the course. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Any AIA CES points?
I don't think so, no, but you get two college credits.
Okay, 2 college credits. All right.
Yeah.
How to sign up for the course. So I will post a link for the Zoom, which will, as well as you gave me a link to the college website, but it was a little confusing. I was telling Ron this because you go to the college website and it basically says, do you want to enroll as a new student or a returning student? Of course, I'm not a student, so I said new student. And then it said, you can apply here and have a meeting with a guidance counselor. I don't want that. But you're saying that if you show up with the Zoom link, potentially as a free, just I'm going to sit and watch.
You can audit it on Monday.
Yeah.
If you decide it's for you, you can take the class. You can pay for the class, and I'll walk people through the process of signing up. It is kind of like you described it. You have to click the box. Do you want a counselor or not? You're applying to college, but they will accept everybody who applies. It's not like you have to pass any certain test. And then once your application has been accepted, then you can register for the class. And it takes a few days for that application to be accepted. So that's why it has to be there Monday. I'll walk everybody through it if they're good to go, and then it has to be completed by the 16th, the registration. But you can still come Monday and Wednesday prior to being enrolled, but you have to be there Monday.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, Ron. So we're going to move on to the next presenter. So I have a choice. I know we're going to leave Dwayne to the end because he's got a very complex project, and we want to look at the simpler projects first. So Vladimir, maybe we'll have you next because you're in Romania and it's already, is it 11 or is it midnight there?
It's over midnight.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry,
All
you should have gone first.
All right, so I'm going to make you presenter here.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. And we'll be in touch and stick around if you have time to watch the rest.